She wrote 31 books, sold millions of copies, translated into 26 languages, interviewed by everyone worth being interviewed by. And at 75, when a journalist asked her what all of it meant, the career, the acclaim, the legacy, she paused for a long time. Then she said, most of it was noise. Only a few things were reported. What she meant by that, and how to tell the difference in your own life, is what this is about. Her name was Dorothea Vail. She spent 50 years writing about the human condition, grief, love, ambition, purpose, interviewing thousands of ordinary people living extraordinary inner lives. She wasn't a philosopher in an ivory tower. She was someone who had made every mistake she wrote about, lost a marriage to ambition, missed a decade of her daughter's childhood to deadlines, rebuilt her life at 52 from the inside out. By 75, she had distilled everything she'd learned, from 5 decades of writing and living, into the clearest answer she'd ever found to the question everyone is actually asking underneath all the other questions. Here's what you'll walk away with, that you'll understand what meaningful actually means. Not the greeting card version, the real one that you'll see exactly where most people look for it, and why that search always fails. And you'll know the one shift that changes everything. Stay with me. Here's the problem with the word's meaning, that it's been used so many times, in so many motivational speeches and self-help books and Instagram captions, that it has been almost completely hollowed out. Ask someone what a meaningful life looks like, and they'll describe something enormous. A legacy, a movement, a body of work that outlasts them. The word has become synonymous with significance at scale, which means most people quietly assume it's not available to them, that they're not building a movement. They're not writing a book. They're raising children and going to work and paying bills and trying to stay healthy. Meaningful feels like something other people have, something you arrive at after you've done something important enough to qualify. So they stop looking, or they look in the places the culture tells them to look: achievement, accumulation, status, and find something that feels good briefly and then requires replacing. Viktor Frankl, who survived 4 Nazi concentration camps and spent his career studying human purpose, wrote that the primary human drive is not pleasure or power, it is meaning. And he observed that the people most capable of enduring anything were not those with the most comfort, but those with the clearest why. Dorothea had read Frankl. She had interviewed people who had survived losses that should have broken them, and she noticed the same thing he noticed. But she found something he hadn't named quite precisely enough. She found that the people who described their lives as meaningful shared one specific quality, not a circumstance, not a personality type, not a level of achievement. One quality. And here's the question I want you to hold while we go through this. Is it possible to have everything the world says should make you happy and still feel the absence of this thing? Hold that, because the answer will surprise you. The first thing Dorothea said: meaning is not found. It is made, and it is made through one specific act. She told me about a woman she'd interviewed for her final book. A retired postal worker named Agnes. Never married. No children. No career that would appear in any highlights reel. Agnes was 81. And she was, Dorothea said, the most visibly content person she had ever sat across. From in 50 years of interviews, Dorothea asked her the direct question: what makes your life feel meaningful? Agnes didn't hesitate. She said, noticing, not achieving, not leaving a legacy, not being remembered, noticing. She noticed the light on a particular stretch of road. Every morning, she noticed which neighbors were struggling before they said anything. She noticed the exact moment spring arrived in her garden, not the calendar date, the actual moment when something shifted. Dorothea said that answer cracked something open for her. Because what Agnes was describing wasn't passive observation. It was a disciplined, daily act of attention. The philosopher Simone Weil wrote that attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. Not money, not time. Attention. The willingness to be fully present to what is actually in front of you. Meaning, Dorothea concluded, is not something you find at the end of a search. It is something that accumulates in direct proportion to the quality of your attention. You make it, moment by moment, by choosing to actually be somewhere instead of passing through it on the way to somewhere else. Most people are somewhere else most of the time, and they wonder why nothing feels like enough, but that's only the first layer. What she said next is where it gets more confronting. The second thing, What you think you're building your meaning around might be the exact thing blocking it. Dorothea wrote her most celebrated book at 58. It took 3 years. During those 3 years, she told me, she was completely certain that finishing it would unlock something. A feeling of completion, of having mattered, of her life having weight. She finished it. The book was praised widely, and on the morning after the reviews came in, she sat at her kitchen table and felt nothing. Not depression, not ingratitude, just the familiar, quiet emptiness that had followed every professional achievement of her life. She called it arrival sickness. The gap between what you imagine the destination would feel like and what it actually feels like when you get there. The psychologist Martin Seligman, in his work on well-being, identified that achievement on its own, without connection, engagement, or meaning, produces satisfaction that evaporates almost immediately. The pleasure is real, but it doesn't accumulate. It doesn't compound. Dorothea didn't need Seligman to tell her this. She had lived it 11 times over. What she came to understand is that the things we use as meaning proxies, success, recognition, productivity, legacy, are not meaning itself. They are the things meaning sometimes accompanies. And when we confuse them for the source, we spend our entire lives chasing the shadow of the thing instead of the thing itself. The people in her interviews who described genuinely meaningful lives were not the ones with the most impressive outcomes. They were the ones who had stopped outsourcing their sense of meaning to results. They had found a way to locate it in the process, in the doing, in the being with, which brings us to the third thing. The one she said took her the longest, and that most people never get to. The third thing, and this is the one that changes everything. Meaning requires witness. And the most important witness is you. Dorothea lost her mother when she was 63. They hadn't been close. Not for most of Dorothea's adult life. There had been years of distance, a few attempts at repair, then a kind of functional cordiality that both of them had quietly accepted as the best available version. Her mother died in March. By October, Dorothea said, she was undone in a way she hadn't expected, not by the grief of losing someone close, by the grief of realizing how much had gone unwitnessed between them. Her mother had lived an entire interior life, fears, joys, regrets, questions that Dorothea had never asked about. And now she couldn't. She said, I had been so busy being witnessed, publishing, being reviewed, being read, that I forgot to witness the people in front of me. And I forgot to witness my own life as it was happening. That second part is the one that landed hardest. She talked about the human tendency to defer the acknowledgement of your own experience, to treat your present life as a rough draft of the real thing, the thing that will happen when conditions improve, when the book is done, when the relationship is better, when the health scare is resolved. The philosopher William James observed that the deepest craving in human nature is the need to be appreciated. But Dorothea had found something adjacent and perhaps more fundamental, the need to appreciate. To bear witness to your own existence with enough care and attention that it feels real while it is happening, not in a self-obsessed way, in a present way, in the way that Agnes the postal worker did, noticing the light on a particular stretch of road because she had decided her ordinary life was worth paying attention to. That decision, that the ordinary texture of your daily life is worth witnessing, is, Dorothea said, the exact decision that separates people who feel the presence of meaning from people who are always searching for it somewhere ahead of them. So back to the question I asked you to hold, is it possible to have everything the world says should make you happy and still feel the absence of this thing? Yes. Completely. Consistently. In ways that money and achievement and recognition cannot fix. Because what's absent isn't success. What's absent is attention. The quality of your own presence to your own life. The willingness to witness yourself and the people around you as if what's happening right now actually matters, not as a stepping stone, not as a chapter to get through, but as the thing itself. That Dorothea's answer to a meaningful life was not a practice or a philosophy or a productivity system. It was a decision. The decision to stop treating your life as something that will begin properly once conditions are right. It has already begun. It is happening in the room you're sitting in the person you haven't called back, in the walk you keep postponing, in the version of yourself that is being formed right now by what you're choosing to pay attention to. A meaningful life is not waiting for you at the destination. It is in the quality of attention you bring to the journey. And if you're wondering what that actually looks like on a regular Tuesday, not in theory, in practice, the next video gets into exactly that, because knowing this matters. But knowing it without changing anything is just a beautiful idea. The next video is about the specific daily habits of people who have figured out how to actually live this way, not as a concept, but as a practice that's right there. Press play. Your ordinary Tuesday is more important than you think.